Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast, where we navigate controversial topics, deep dive into life-changing stories, and engage in meaningful conversation. Join us in embracing the beauty of mindful motherhood. I'm your host, Corinne Adele. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mindful Mama podcast. Today, we have a guest on for the second time. Andrea, if you want to go ahead and reintroduce yourself to our audience.
Hey, I'm Andrea Haskins, and I'm a mom of two and lactation counselor, and my Instagram handle is @instinctualmothering. And yeah, I help encourage moms breastfeed online. I also help moms start businesses, like I did online, on Instagram, on social media, just to help moms. And yeah, I'm the co-founder of Radical Moms Union, which we chatted a little bit about last time, and the work we do towards championing mother-baby. So yeah, that's me. Thanks for having me on again.
No, of course. I'm so excited to chat again because last time we had you on, I feel like at the end of our episode, we were like, oh my gosh, I think we could just continue chatting for a really long time about a bunch of different things. So we're kind of just going to take it as, we're friends chatting about whatever, and you guys just get to have a listening ear. So we're just going to go ahead and dive in.
Yeah, I felt like at the end, I was like, oh man, we could keep talking about this. And you being in the influencer space, I'm always curious about if you're approached by these brands and stuff. So at Rad Moms Union, we started doing a lot of campaigning against one particular formula company, against their marketing, because we thought it was unethical and going against the WHO code, which is you're not really supposed to advertise formula anyway in the US, but of course people still do. So we talked a little bit about what Bobby's doing and what some other brands are doing on social media. So I just think you have a unique perspective in being in that space and the brands approaching you and stuff. I don't know if you saw this. I don't even know who it was, but one of the influencers accidentally posted their payment from Aerie. Did you see that?
No.
I just saw it on Reddit. I don't know if I want to drop her name.
I stay off of Reddit because I have trolls over there and it's bad for my mental health.
It's bad. Yeah. I shouldn't go on Reddit.
Yeah.
But it was I don't know how this influencer ended up accidentally posting it. I don't know the logistics, but it was this whole thing, 2 reels and a couple of stories for Q4 for Aerie for $45,000.
Oh my God.
And I just made a reel about it because I'm this is what these people are getting paid. But we're not supposed to talk negatively about it when we see a campaign like this. We just saw this huge rollout from Bobby, this campaign with a bunch of influencers. It was Bobby's donating $500. It's oh, they're supposed to be so great because they donated $500. Let's see how much you paid all these
how
influencers.
Much the influencers are being paid to promote. Yeah, instead of paying influencers to promote the formula, maybe you should just be donating, all of that money to help women in need. Yeah, was that for the LA fires or was that just in general that they were donating?
This was before, or no, it was the week after the LA fires, but no. So they rolled out this whole campaign about asking for help, and I talked a little bit about this last time. I think Bobby just wants to appear as different than other formula companies, so they market a lot oh, your mental health is important and blah, 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 blah. And we actually think this new campaign might have been as a result of some of the criticism they've been receiving over their marketing, because they all had the script, right? And it was about asking for help. Oh, it's so hard to ask for help as a mom, which okay, so our criticism of their messaging has been surrounded by don't say just formula is going to fix your mental health, right? Because that's not a mental health treatment. If you are struggling, you deserve real help. So that's been our message a lot. So it almost feels like they heard that and they're oh no, we can't say that. we now have to throw in these other things. So the script that all the influencers were talking about was like, oh yeah, I get therapy, I get help from my village, I take medication. So like they're now throwing in, I don't know if I'm delusional, like Bobby's responding to us by changing their message, but they went from switching formula will help your mental health to, oh, now you have to have a holistic.
Right.
Because like it's almost like they're covering their ass a little bit with that.
No,
I don't know.
I think that's probably reality.
Yeah,
If
so it
they're
was really
trying to
weird.
change it.
They all had these scripts. Like I said, it was about asking for help, which is it's like a great message. I love the message. It's just like the problematic thing is like they're attaching themselves to that message in order to profit for their company.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
And I don't know, can I name drop the influencers that were a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's your episode if you want to go ahead.
Well, I don't want you to get,
No, that's
you know.
okay.
But so a big one was Emily Bondi. I don't know exactly how many followers she's has, but I think it's in the millions. And she's been a huge advocate for home birth, breastfeeding, and yeah, she's great. She's funny, she's relatable. She has like 5 kids, and she's talked about having home births and unmedicated births, and everyone loves her. And she was one of the influencers who did one of these posts in this campaign, this asking for help thing. And we got in the comments like, hey, this is a great message, but just so you know, like this company is predatory. And, you know, obviously we get a lot of backlash for commenting that. I got a lot of comments back. So what ended up happening was we talked to Emily, and this was the first influencer that actually like listened to us and actually did not block us, because she had, and not only Radical Moms Union, but there were other comments from other people that like I've never spoken to, commenting on it, saying like, hey, this company sucks or whatever. So we talked to her, and this was the first time we had an influencer actually listen to us, so that was great. And I think she ended up, like, she didn't take the post down, but she ended up donating the money that she made.
Yeah, because once you do a campaign and you sign a contract, you can't
take it down.
Yeah. I mean, I've had contracts where it's like it's permanent. You can never remove your post. So she is stuck in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh. So she ended up, like, contacting some organizations to donate the money. The problem is one of the organizations, Breastfeed LA, like they can't take the money because they know it's formula money and it's against their ethics. Yeah. They're like, we can't take this. So yeah, I guess influencers like just think about, or I guess like a lot of influencers are just taking these deals without like really digging into what the company is, I think.
Right. Because, well, on the outside, it does look like a nice deal. Yeah. Like, I'm going to get on my platform. I'm going to chat about mental health because that's important, especially online. As a mother, you know, feeling alone, having these issues. And I'm going to share how I'm bettering my mental health. And I'm going to be paid for it. And I'm going to be sent product that is, Bobby is like one of the top like cleanest formulas or whatever in the US. So they're like, oh, all of this is great. Are they organic? I can't remember.
Yeah, they do have organic. They definitely have an organic line. And yeah, they do appeal to like the Crunchi.
Right, exactly.
The Crunchi people. But they never talk about their ingredients, or they don't like compete with other formulas. They compete with breastfeeding, which is the problem.
That's the problem. Yes, that's the problem right there. It's like, so I mean, influencers are looking at this. Like, if I wasn't, super passionate about breastfeeding and stuff, I probably would have looked at that same deal and been like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Mental health, I can help women. I get this free product. I get paid. And no one really thinks deeper about like what the messaging is. No one will sit here and think this is predatory unless someone like you is beginning to call it out and be like, hey guys, wait, this is like not right. I actually, one of my friends, I told you I don't get on Reddit, but I have a friend who does. And she told me our last episode made it onto Reddit and people are
Oh my
calling us
God. I'm
formula
on Reddit.
shamers. Formula shamers.
I
I'm like,
made it.
really? Did you listen to the episode?
No.
Because we're not shaming formula at all. This
Yeah.
is not what this is about. It's about breastfeeding literally being attacked when it's
Yeah.
like they shouldn't even be they shouldn't be like in the same conversation when it comes to promoting things
I
online.
know.
Like it's an
We don't
attack
have
on
whatever $45,000 to pay influencers to
right.
promote breastfeeding.
Right, to promote breastfeeding. Exactly.
Not
It's
saying
like,
I don't know how much they were paid. Like it probably
right.
wasn't that. Like I have no idea.
Well, who
Um,
knows? It depends on your engagement. It depends on your how many followers you have, how long the campaign is, how many posts they make. I mean, it very well could be really high up there. I don't know.
yeah, it's just so hard because people just associate anytime you say the word formula and anything negative, people really associate that with like shaming.
They
And
do.
sometimes there's just not really a way to get them to think that it's not. Like they're just gonna think that due to their own personal, hang-ups on it or their own personal experience. But I understand that like I am reaching people that do get it. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
And I am changing some people's minds, so that kind of outweighs the people that see it as negative because obviously they've got their own hang-ups, their own issues. So it's not anything I'm doing. It's literally just them. And yeah, it was nice to see because most of the people we comment, if there's like a Bobby influencer, we will comment and be like, hey, this is unethical, and then they'll just like block us.
Right. And it's like they can't think. Like they can't just sit there and like allow themselves to like sit with something that may feel a little bit uncomfortable at
Yeah.
first. And yeah, allow themselves to like truly begin to understand because it's just immediate shame, immediate shame, immediate shame.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, I always have to remind myself that like my message, the things that I post about, the things that I'm passionate about, as women, our bodies are constantly evolving, and Indigo Luna gets that. Their beautiful, sustainable clothing made from natural fibers is designed with you in mind. Embracing every curve and change, including the seasons of pregnancy and breastfeeding, rooted in slow fashion, Indigo Luna prioritizes ethical production and timeless designs. As a newly postpartum mother, they really helped me rediscover my confidence and style. Feel good in clothes that honor your body and the planet. Use my link in the show notes to save 10% off your order at indigoluna.com. It's not going to be for everybody, but I am going to reach certain people, and those are the people I'm posting for. So it's exactly what you're saying. Like the masses may not love what you're saying, but it's the smaller crowd that you're trying to go for that you are making changes with, and I think that's incredibly important to do.
Yeah, so I'll always get the comment like, "Oh, so what are my baby's just supposed to starve?" Like I'll get that comment every day almost. And I'm like, "No, like it's not what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah.
it's the advertising of it." With influencers, the reason I feel like it's so problematic is like the Bravo celebrity that I was just talking about, Lindsay Hubbard. She's on Summer House for those of you that watch Bravo. She, I had listened to another podcast with her talking about her pregnancy, her motherhood, her breastfeeding, and it didn't like strike me as like that breastfeeding was super important to her. Like it's whatever. Okay, fine. If it's not important to you, it's not important to you. But for her to go on and do the ad that's talking about mental health and like talking about, oh, it's so important to ask for help when these, she's likely got a night nurse. She's likely got,
Oh,
all
yeah.
the resources in the world. She could afford a lactation consultant,
Right.
but some people can't. So for her
Right.
to go spread that message and then like regular people see it and it's like, oh yeah, like it's okay to ask for help. Which sort of translates in it's okay to switch to formula.
Right.
So that's why I see it as like pretty problematic, because I don't think she is like breastfeeding is just so too hard mentally. I can't do it. I just think it just wasn't important to her. She got this brand deal, whatever. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Talk about it, get money. But then like there people are actually like really struggling and they don't have all the resources you have, and they do deserve like better help.
It's like that. It's the whole thing that celebrities do. It's very performative. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to stoop down to your guys' level when it benefits me to do that and pretend, or maybe it's not pretending, who knows? But like, to get them, it's like, oh, they're a real person and they have these struggles too. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like, I'm just going to pretend when it benefits me.
Right.
And so that's why just, if you see a formula ad, like an influencer with a formula ad or even anything, you just have to be like, okay, this isn't really like, this is an advertisement. And I think that's all I commented on Emily Vondi's, which was, all I said was, hey, just wanted to remind moms, this is actually an advertisement for formula. Like, that's all I said. And Bobby, I think I said Bobby makes money when you don't breastfeed. And yeah, I ended up with a lot of negative comments from that.
Right. And like, we just want listeners to understand that what we are against is the profit, the massive profit that these people are making. And they're using influencers that you trust and that you love to profit off of you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the issue. Nobody here is against formula when it's needed. Like, that's not what we're against. And also, it is so unethical. It's so unethical to be promoting formula. And it's not that it's illegal. What is it? There's some sort of, remind me again.
Did we talk about that last time?
I think
I
we
don't
talked
remember.
about it a little bit because I had brought up the documentary called The Milky Way. And
Yeah, I
that's
saw
when
that.
I learned about formula advertisement. In other countries, you're not allowed to, and they don't. They uphold that. And they don't.
It's like for the WHO code, the World Health Organization code, it's technically you're not supposed to advertise formula. You're not supposed to give it in hospitals. You're not supposed to have it in doctors' offices. There's all sorts of regulations that we're supposed to follow, but the U.S. and New Zealand are the only countries that don't follow those rules set by the World Health Organization. Similar to like how we have like pharma ads.
Right. Yeah.
And I do feel like, the old companies like Enfamil and Similac, they already like are set in their ways. You don't really see. That's why it's just so weird to me that people just go to bat for Bobby in the comments too. It's like, this is just like a company. They don't like care about you. Can you imagine people in the comments being like, Similac, they're so awesome. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
They have their like, so the old school playbook of like the formula companies would be like, they have relationships with doctors. They give samples in the pediatrician's office. Like they come into, just like a pharma rep would come into a doctor's office. They give samples. That's why your pediatrician or your OB might have formula samples.
Yeah, you come home with a backpack and it has formula in it. I've had formula sent to my house multiple times when I signed up for a registry. Like I would sign up for a Target registry or Amazon or something, and all of a sudden formula would show up at my door. That happened to me almost every pregnancy. I think Florence was the only one it didn't happen because I didn't do a registry with her.
Yeah, people tell me all the time, like, look, this just showed up at my door. Like, what the heck?
Addressed to me. And I'm like, wait, where did this come from?
I went in another podcast a couple weeks ago, Truth Moms, and we literally recorded in the day after she's pregnant, and she's like, this just showed up on my door, and she sent me a picture of like the sack. So like those are kind of the old school ways of advertising. Like WIC is like the government is one of the biggest purchasers of formula. So I also think that's why we're not adhering to these rules as well, because it's like, everyone's in bed together.
Right.
Everyone's like, it benefits everyone. So those are kind of like the old school ways of advertising, which should not be allowed. But now we're seeing like more of this on social media. Like the relatable moms and the influencers. That's kind of like the new wave, and it's very, very unregulated. There's no rules surrounding it. So obviously it's been pretty profitable, as we can
Right.
see, because every time I like point it out, I get attacked by people. So like, I don't know, people are buying in. And like the WHO code even came about because Nestle in the 70s was sending people dressed up as nurses to developing countries to pretend that they're nurses and like recommend the formula. And this was like in areas where there was not any clean water. So now they can't afford the formula. Once their milk dries up, they're stretching the formula, and a bunch of babies died. So that was when they created the milk code to guard against formula advertising.
It's insane. Absolutely insane.
I just posted this today. Like, we still see like companies donating formula in like natural disasters, which is bad because there's not clean water. Like with the LA fires, Bobby had posted, yeah, we're going to donate 1,600 cans and blah, blah, blah. Like they have powdered formula. You're supposed to heat it to 70 degrees.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because like on the outside looking in, natural disaster happens. Babies need to be fed. A formula company comes and says, we're going to donate to you. On the outside, that looks amazing. Like they're feeding babies. Yeah. But like you're bringing up the fact that, okay, well, there's no clean water and you're going to run out of the formula eventually. Then what?
Yeah.
Like that is difficult.
Yeah. So, and like ready to feed is definitely a better, but that also introduces problems because I don't know, like I did a piece today on Radical Moms Union, and I was researching about it, and like the CDC like straight up just says do not donate formula, blah blah blah. And there was like this study that was saying like even just like seeing the formula when a mom's in an emergency situation, it makes her doubt that she's able to feed her baby. Because if you've been through this huge traumatic thing, you're like, oh my God, my milk's going to dry up because I'm so stressed. Like maybe you're not eating as much. You're obviously like in fight or flight. And you're like, oh, I'm just going to get this formula just in case because I'm so stressed. What if my milk dries up? When in reality, like milk production is super resilient in terms of stress and in terms of like hunger.
I mean, yeah, we look at all the impoverished countries and how they breastfeed their babies until like 8 or 9 years old. It is so true. Actually, my lactation counselor talks about that all the time. It's like, actually, our bodies adapt really well. And
yeah, it was saying like, listen, women have breastfed through famine and like drought. But just seeing, so imagine if like your house just burnt down and you're breastfeeding and you have like nowhere to go and you're in the donation spot and you're just like, run ragged, completely in fight or flight, and you're like just seeing the formula like, oh man, I better grab some just in case. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's no fault of the mom, but it's like because it's there, then you feed the formula and then obviously that will lower your supply. And then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now they're relying on formula. So that's their whole
and then they're
marketing
like, I'm
playbook.
so glad I had it.
Yeah.
It's like, dang, see, I needed it. When in reality, I think actually that is a massive issue in general with moms. Like, I even did it as a first-time mom. I'm going to buy formula just in case, and I'm going to have it in the house, and I'm going to bring some with me to the hospital. Like, it is that like, oh gosh, I'm struggling, or baby's struggling, or whatever, and you just reach in the pantry. And then it's that cycle of like the supplementation cycle, and all of a sudden your body is not removing the milk that it needs to remove to continue your supply. And then all of a sudden you're on full-time formula and you're thinking, I'm so glad I had this formula. When in reality, that was the issue to begin with. It was you and your baby, not trusting your baby, you not trusting your body, and relying on an outside resource that you thought you needed in the moment, when in reality, you just needed support from a lactation consultant, someone to help you through the rough spots, because like the first 6 weeks are the hardest. So it's like, yeah, in general, I feel like that is an issue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Like outside of a natural disaster.
Yeah.
When you're postpartum,
Yes.
and that formula has showed up on your doorstep, and you're like, oh man, like I'm not sure if I'm making enough. Let me just see if the baby will take this bottle. And then the baby takes the bottle and like passes out for 4 hours. And you're like, oh my God, I guess I wasn't making enough.
They were starving. My baby
Yeah.
was so hungry.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time.
I
I
know,
hear that all
but
the time.
you have to remember, a baby, if there's a nipple in its mouth, is gonna just suck.
Right.
So just because your baby took a bottle after he breastfed doesn't mean he was starving. And then if he sleep, like, oh my God, like I'll get like, the mom is worried because the baby's eating every hour, and then we fed him formula and then he slept for 4 hours. That's because like, that's an abnormal amount for a baby to eat.
It took me 5 years to finally find non-toxic makeup that's not only nourishing to my skin, but actually performs well. As a previous makeup artist myself, I absolutely refuse to spend my money on makeup products that do not work. Crunchi is the brand that finally converted me. They have personally banished over 10,000 ingredients that do not make the cut into their products, that unfortunately is in most of the makeup we use day in and day out. I'm personally obsessed with their cream concealers and their cream blushes, and I finally started wearing lipstick again because I actually feel good about kissing my babies while wearing it. So their lip pencils are a must. Click the link in my show notes and add the code ADVOCATE10 for 10% off your first purchase with Crunchi. That's Crunchi with an I. And make sure to use my link or the code will not work.
And also, like, formula is a little bit harder to digest than breast milk, so sometimes formula
it takes
babies
longer, doesn't it?
will sleep
to digest?
longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I know a lot of moms who formula feed is like, my baby doesn't sleep. What the heck? Like, they're like, I wish, but I do think in some cases it's like, after Thanksgiving, after you're like ate a bunch, you just want to like lay down and sleep, because in reality, especially when we have moms like newborn stages, like first couple of weeks, their belly is so small, and the amount that they should get is so small compared to like those formula bottles they have at the
that are massive
at the hospital. So that might be like stuffing themselves.
Yeah, and then it stretches their tummies too.
Yeah.
And then you have to feed them more, and it's just that vicious cycle.
Yeah. So, it makes me so upset, because it's like, I wish I could just catch all the moms before they got into this cycle, because it's harder to get out.
Right.
Because you have to cut down on the formula very slowly. You have to monitor diapers, but it's hard to judge by diapers when you are supplementing. So you have to like be really careful. They're not losing weight. And then you have to pump extra, which is a lot of extra work and annoying, and no one likes pumping. So I just wish that like you said, you just need a lactation consultant. Like, if you don't think your baby's getting enough, or, your baby's losing weight, you need a lactation. If you want to breastfeed, you need a lactation consultant.
Don't go to your pediatrician. Please. Like, most pediatricians don't know anything about breastfeeding. All they're going to do is weigh your baby and say, oh, they're not gaining the weight that I would like to see. I cannot tell you how many women are in my DMs every single week saying, the pediatrician says I need to supplement because my baby is not gaining the way that they should be. And I say, Mama, what do you think? How do you feel? Do you think your baby is healthy? Oh, how are wet diapers and poopy diapers? If you look at your baby, do you think they're healthy? Do you feel they're healthy? I'm always pointing moms back to themselves, because they know best. They know their baby best. not this random stranger that you believe has authority over you because they're putting your baby on a scale that is, like comparing them to all the formula fed babies, like the scale and all of the measurements and percentiles, all of that is BS. Like every baby is so different. Every baby is so different.
Yeah,
And it's
you
like,
definitely
yes.
want to ask what growth chart your pediatrician is
Right.
using, because
Yeah.
there's like a separate one for breastfed babies.
Mm-hmm.
And also like the pediatrician is probably, I mean, some people have great pediatricians. Mine's great. Like she breastfed her kids till they were like 5. I've never had
Wow.
an issue with mine.
Yeah.
I do hear horror stories a lot. And they don't have the like training in breastfeeding they only have one tool, and it's like, oh, baby not gaining weight, formula, that'll
Right.
solve the problem. But they
Yeah.
have no other
Resources
like,
to give.
yeah. So if you were in that position, first make sure like they're using the right chart, and maybe your baby is gaining enough. But if the baby's not gaining enough, then that's where like you hook up with a lactation consultant that can hopefully come to your house.
That's what I always tell moms too.
Yeah.
That is my biggest recommendation. Find a lactation consultant that will come to your house, do a prenatal visit with them first,
Yeah.
and then do a postpartum visit, like the first couple of days that you're home, and then maybe a week after, whatever. Like it is gold to have
Yeah.
them come to you. Gold.
Yeah. So that's when formula is a tool where you're like, okay, they're not gaining enough. Let's figure out why.
Right.
Maybe it's there, you have a tongue tie. Maybe
Yep.
it's like your supply, which is not always necessarily your supply. It could be something totally different. Once you figure that out, then your lactation consultant will like tell you, okay, do XYZ to fix
Right.
it. Then you use formula until like you get it fixed. But a lot of times what's just happening is like the pediatrician will be like, here, you need to supplement. Your baby's not gaining weight, which is terrifying to you.
Right.
You start using
Terrifying.
the formula, your milk supply goes down. Then eventually the milk supply disappears, and you're like, thank God I had formula. Fed is best. Blah, 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 blah. My baby
My
would have
supply
starved.
was low. I
Yep.
didn't make milk.
Yep.
I cannot tell you how many women I have tell me that they didn't make milk. And
Yeah.
you can't say anything to that.
Yeah.
And I wish I
But
could be like, did you know that actually it is extremely rare for a woman? It does happen,
yeah.
100%, but not like 30% of the population that is claiming they did not make milk. That's just it. It's not the truth.
So yeah, like that's why advocating for this stuff is super tricky, because you do get a lot of hurt feelings. But it's like, how many people can I help to get to them
Right.
before that? Like
Right.
all I have to do is get to these women before they get to that pediatrician 2-day appointment or whatever, or week appointment, for them to be like, oh, your baby's not gaining weight. And then they haven't looked, researched enough to know like what to do next. So yeah, that's why it does get tough, because you do get a lot of triggered women saying I didn't make enough, blah, 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 blah. But
And
like,
it's
I
hard
think
because you
it's
don't
worth
want to
it.
invalidate them.
Yeah.
Like, how can you imagine you have this belief? You fully believe that you did not make enough milk. It was terrible. It was so hard for
Yeah.
you. You wanted to breastfeed more than anything, but your baby wasn't gaining weight and you didn't have enough milk. And then someone comes in and says, hey, that's probably not true. Like, you can't like invalidate women like that, but also it's like, I want to just be like, I need you to know the truth of this, and it's
Yeah.
it just like breaks my heart, because so many women, mothers, walk around with these stories about their births, about their babies, about their breastfeeding journeys that they believe that's, is true. And it's like you
Yeah,
said,
it's the
we need
same
to
thing
start
with
getting to
birth.
women before this happens.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like it is the same thing with birth. Like, oh, I had to
Yeah.
have a C-section because
I
of
know.
XYZ.
I
And you're like,
know.
no, you probably didn't. But I mean, it's after the fact. Why,
Right.
But yeah, I think it's worth it just to talk about this stuff, like I said, because then you do reach the people before they get there, even
Right.
though it's rough. And then like we have moms who just get it, right? In Rad Moms Union, like they formula fed, or they had disrupted births, and they're not offended by what we talk
Right.
about. Like they just get it, right? Because you're like, oh yeah, I was sabotaged, and that sucks.
Yeah.
So that's my whole point. I'm like, this is why I talk about this stuff, so you cannot be sabotaged. But some people just don't get it
Yeah.
because they're
The
coming
message is
from
just not for everybody,
such a
unfortunately.
triggered place.
Yeah, 100%, because it is so emotional, you know? And like, I could have been one of those moms. I could have been one of those moms who supplemented and lost their supply because I was induced early. My baby came at 5 pounds. He was tiny. And he lost 10% of his body weight, whatever. I was
Why were
told
you
I needed.
induced?
Oh, because he was small.
Okay.
They
This
didn't want.
makes no sense. They induce you because they're small. They induce you because they're big.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they can find. Low amniotic fluid, too much amniotic fluid. Oh, you have one high blood pressure reading. It's preeclampsia.
Yeah.
Like it's constant. So yeah, I was induced because he was too small. He came out. He was five-ish pounds, and he was also pumped with fluids because I was induced. So he was getting fluids and pitocin and all that. So he comes out at an artificial weight. And then he loses it by peeing it all out, right?
Yeah.
And so then he's lost 10% of his body weight. And I'm told I need to supplement with formula. And the pediatrician was like, parents like you hate to hear the F word. And I'm sitting here literally 3 days postpartum. I'm like, what does she mean F word? Like, I'm literally thinking she's talking about the cuss word. I'm like, what? Like, my brain is not there. I'm 3 days postpartum. Okay. And she's like, formula. I'm like, what? And she's like, if your milk is not in, you need to supplement with 1 ounce of formula before you feed every feed. And like, I almost did it because I didn't know. And then I got home and realized, wait, my boobs are rock hard. Wait, I think my milk is in. And then I didn't do it. But I could have been one of those moms. And it would have been so devastating for me. And I would have believed that I needed formula because in that moment, first time mom, my baby's tiny as it is. He's in preemie clothes and he's lost 10% of his body weight. Like, I can understand how devastating that would be, you know?
Yeah. Birth trauma is another big thing
Yeah.
that contributes to all this because, you just have women that have just gone through like hell for especially with these
Right.
inductions. I had like a 3-day induction as well for just like post dates.
Right.
And it is like a hellish experience. And then you have to like learn to feed your baby after.
When you're exhausted, you're depleted, you haven't eaten because you're not allowed to eat. And
I
then
didn't
you just
sleep
want
for
to
like
sleep.
3 days
Yes, you just want to sleep.
before my
And then you have a
daughter came.
newborn who needs to
Yeah.
eat, like, yes, we are
Yeah.
setting our women up to fail. And then we're giving them the golden ticket. And we're saying, here you go.
Especially with the inductions, like you said, they induced you and he was small. Like, I do feel like some women that are getting these inductions, whether they're needed or not, like, I mean, which we know, like not a majority, maybe a majority, but a lot of them are not really needed.
Right.
Babies between babies like full term or whatever, like 36, 37 weeks, right? But the babies that are born between like 37 and 40 weeks, everything like looks fine, like on the surface, but a lot of times they really struggle with like their suck reflex.
Yeah.
So I
'cause
think,
it's not integrated yet.
yeah. So that's why I think like that's another piece of why people are having such difficult time breastfeeding when we're having all these inductions, because maybe they really weren't 40 weeks. Maybe
Exactly. You
there's
don't
no way you could ever
know.
know
It's
for
a
sure.
guess. It's a
Yeah.
guess. Like,
Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were like 38 weeks, and it's just like harder.
and 38
for
weeks doesn't mean your baby is ready to come, too. I hate that term. Full term. You're full term at 37 weeks. It's safer. It's safer to get the baby out at the end of your pregnancy artificially, whether that be C-section, induction. But your baby wasn't ready. They're not ready. They weren't ready. And that's it. Full term doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. And so I do think that's a piece of the puzzle with the low breastfeeding rates. But then in addition to the induction, whether the baby's early or not, like I said, you're just exhausted and you feel awful. I don't know. Some people have good induction stories. I don't. It was like hell. It was 3 days long. But like more often than not, it's like a horror story, and then you're
Yeah.
trying to breastfeed, or like you're
Right.
separated from the baby. So yeah, I talk a lot about that too with birth, and of course you get the comments like, well, I didn't have any problems breastfeeding after a C-section. I'm like, okay, like I'm just talking about it because
Right.
it's possible.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to have a perfect birth to breastfeed. Like no, you don't, but it
But it
definitely
is a
plays
piece
a
of the
role.
puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah,
100% is the piece of the puzzle.
I know. Yeah. And we do have like that's another piece of Bobby's marketing is talking about birth trauma and profiting off of that. So that's also kind of gross as well.
That's very gross. Yeah.
I think it was a while ago. I don't remember what I mean, yeah, they have like these blog posts that say like combo feeding got me through my C-section or something like that. Like, so they're promoting basically like, if you have a C-section, you should like try combo feeding because it will make your life easier, yada, 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 which I think we talked about a little at the last
I think we did
episode.
talk about the combo feeding because the last round of the influencer posts was breastfeeding mothers posting about combo feeding.
Yeah.
And I told you, I was like, yeah, I've seen several of those posts where these are breastfeeding mothers and they don't even realize that they themselves are being targeted and they're
I
like
know. Yeah.
taking these deals.
And that was another thing with Lindsay from Summer House. Like, because she had talked about on what was the podcast? Not skinny but not fat. She had talked about oh yeah, we're supplementing and we're using some formula and I'm pumping, and maybe she was fine with that, and which is totally fine if that's your jam. I think that's harder than just
Yeah.
breastfeeding, but
Yeah.
it's totally fine. You're not like
Hmm.
you're probably not going to have the longest breastfeeding relationship if you just start out combo feeding, but if that's you don't care, then whatever. So I kind of just got the vibe from her like she didn't care. So like, but if someone else sees that and is like, "Oh yeah, I think I should start doing that. Like maybe I should start combo feeding." But they
Right.
actually had the goal of exclusively breastfeeding, like that's a problem. So yeah, just be careful about like who you take advice from, or like, base, because their goals might not be the same as your goals,
That's good. Yeah.
So that was another, yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about the combo feeding because it's the same thing. It's like a
Right.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that you don't even realize that you're sabotaging yourself. Something that I always remind moms is, hey, and I learned this from my lactation counselor, and even as a 2 times breastfeeding mom at that time, I didn't even realize this. She told me, did you know that you don't have to supplement with formula? You can supplement with your own breast milk. Like
Oh yeah.
if you are worried about your baby's weight gain, whatever, you can always pump and bottle feed so that you know how much your baby's getting, or pump and have someone bottle feed your baby when you go on a date. Supplementation does not have to equal formula unless it has to. Like unless
Yeah.
it literally has to, And like that's a great way to protect your supply if you're wanting to have like a boost supply, is you can do that if you
Yeah,
want
that would
to.
be like, part of a plan you would make
Right.
if you got
Exactly.
help and you were struggling with supply. Another thing I think is like just this whole culture of, and I don't want to be like I don't want to have be like perfect is an enemy of the good, but I think just like the whole culture around motherhood. Now I'm like starting this topic and we have like 10 minutes left, but like the whole culture around motherhood and breastfeeding is kind of like not conducive to breastfeeding, because we do have moms like with the birth thing, like get this baby out of me, like
Yeah.
I'm tired of being pregnant. It's all about like control.
It is. It's all about control. Yeah.
And then like a lot of moms that I see, like new moms, are just wanting like these fancy gadgets, like, the special, mobile pumps, and like some moms are just like pumping right out at the start. Like they want to exclusively breastfeed, but for some reason they're told to like, they have to pump after every breastfeed. So now they're like breastfeeding, then pumping, breastfeeding, then, and it's like exhausting and terrible. I think it's just like the culture, like they got this expensive pump and they just want to be safe and they want to use it. And like, it's just not conducive. Like breastfeeding is supposed to be like very, I don't want to say
Intuitive.
natural. Yes, intuitive, or
Yeah.
like you're not supposed to like measure the ounces and like worry about time. You're supposed to
Right.
literally just lay there skin to skin with your baby and like put the boob in the mouth
Yep.
every single time it moves a muscle. Like
Right.
that is what you need to do if you are worried about supply. But I think a lot of moms are just like thrown into this culture of like, oh, we got to control everything and everything. We need all these gadgets and we need to let other people feed the baby and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's just like not, it doesn't mesh well with the way breastfeeding evolved to be, which is like very, very frequent small feeds. So I just think that, and like the influencer thing is annoying too, because they're hawking all these products during pregnancy. And then it's like, well, you could have used this $800 for this bassinet to like hire a lactation consultant. So that
I
pisses me off
know.
too.
I know. Instead of, getting the high-tech strollers and the car seats, I always tell people invest in like postpartum support, which could
Yeah.
be, someone bringing you meals or like a whatever. And if you want to breastfeed, that's a lactation counselor or a consultant, someone that can come to your house and help you. Like those are the things that are important. Your baby's not going to remember if they're in a fancy car seat or not. There
Yeah, they're
are
so expensive.
safe car seats that are less expensive,
Yeah,
and
there's the one that turns into a like the
oh, the Duna. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. The
it's so
Duna car seat.
expensive.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
And
like
it is that like keeping up with the Joneses type of
yeah,
thing online because everyone's showing, oh, here's my new gadget. And like I'm guilty of that 100%. I have Nuna car seats for my kids. I got the LV pumps, all of that. I 100% will admit that I'm guilty of that too. But it never came before my ability to pay for
yeah,
lactation help. Our skin is our biggest organ, which means it absorbs all of the toxins we are exposing ourselves to every day. Because of this, I'm very mindful about the skincare and body care I use for myself. Osea formulates their skincare with seaweed because it's a superfood rich in vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. Different species of seaweed can provide a myriad of benefits, including anti-aging and moisturization. They source their seaweed from different places around the world based on its high mineral content and combines it with other naturally derived ingredients. Use my code Corinne10 for 10% off or see the link in my show notes.
yeah.
That was
Art of Pop.
always 100% more important to me.
That's how I found you with the Art of Pop
Oh, the
drama.
drama. Yes.
No,
Yep.
I love
Yep.
baby care. That's the one baby item that I'm like, you need this as a
Yeah,
baby
baby.
carrier.
Yes, 100%. But you don't need the $500 already
Yeah.
pop. I will say that that carrier is bomb, but the company sucks ass. They're terrible people. But like I love the Tuck and Bundle or the Solly Baby, and those ones are like $50 or whatever. You can find really decently priced ones. My daughter
Yeah.
Cicely literally lived in a carrier for like 5 months. I couldn't put her down. And that's
Yeah,
how it
and
was.
something like that is going to also be really conducive to breastfeeding if you're keeping the baby like
Yes.
close to you and
Yep.
like they're just eating very short, frequent, but it's just like the culture is not like that. We're like shove as much food into them so I can put you down and lay you down and go do whatever else I need to do, which is like sad
Yeah.
and hard because a lot of people don't have support,
Yep.
but like also needs to be said because a lot more people could just be like just laying there enjoying their baby than worrying about, the dishes. Which
Yeah, we
I was there
don't have
too.
villages
I
anymore,
know.
and it's not seen as like
You're still
I don't know.
expected to be productive.
Yes, and men even get made fun of for taking a certain amount of time off of work for their babies being born. My husband took a month off for Florence, and I wanted more than that. Like, why are we so obsessed with this idea of constantly being separated from our families?
I know.
Like, if we're able to take the time off of work, then we should. Like, that's amazing. So it's just like this whole culture of like separation. It's all separation. And then we wonder why we're so broken. We wonder why things aren't working out for us with our breastfeeding relationship, or, it's just, it's us outsourcing because we don't want to be inconvenienced too, because we live in a culture of convenience.
Like, go, don't stop working.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's convenience and working your buns off constantly, Like, I really believe that our brains are beginning to shrink and we no longer have the ability to be patient or wait for things or be uncomfortable.
I know.
Like, we can just pop a pill and our pain is away instead of like sitting with the uncomfortableness. And this all just leaches into motherhood. Like, oh, I'm so exhausted. My baby's not sleeping. I'm going to buy a snoo and I'm going to wrap them up in a straight jacket and I'm going to put them in this thing that shakes them to sleep. And then I'm going to shove a binky in their mouth every time they cry. Go to bed, go to bed.
It's so dystopian.
It is. And we don't even realize how, like, oh my gosh, how far
I can't believe how much that thing is either.
It's like, what, over $1,000? You can rent it now, apparently, for a couple of months. And I'm like, oh, or you could sleep with your baby. Like,
it is a little dystopian. I don't know if you follow Brittany Goodnight Moonchild.
I don't think so.
She talks about this stuff a lot more eloquently than I do, but she always talks about how like it's so dystopian that we're like putting our babies down and like not cuddling them, and it's like seen as bad. It's seen as like a bad habit. It's very sad.
Yeah.
And you just want to save the moms from buying into that. And like, unfortunately, along the way, people take offense to that. But hopefully you're just like getting to enough moms that it makes it worth it.
Right. Yeah. And then we wonder why like our babies have a hard time sleeping, or they have, behavioral issues in the future. And it's like, well, their nervous systems were not regulated the way that they should have been, like they should be picked up when they cry. They should be held when they cry. They should be rocked to sleep and kept close, as long as possible. And it's really sad. It's so sad that we are told and we are shamed for like, taking care of our babies the way that they're supposed to be taken care of.
Yeah. And if your listeners are interested in more of this stuff, I do write about a lot of it on Radical Moms Union. Like I've written about the SNOO, I think, and sleep training and daycare and even like public school, which I think is like all in a line.
It is.
It's like a conveyor belt.
100%. It is.
Separation.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. It's just like outsourcing for everything because we don't want to be inconvenienced or it's too hard. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to chat about for the last 5 or so minutes?
Well, like I said, find me at Instinctual Mothering, and then the at radical_moms_union is my co-founder, Natasha, but she posts, all the articles that we do. And also we have our like ongoing campaign for formula, influencer marketing, and Bobby. And like, if you're really into it, you can join a team to help us because we have a bunch of different legs of the team that are working on different things.
I'm going to link all of your stuff down below. And if you have anything extra that you want to send over, you can.
Okay.
And I'll put it all in the description so everyone can find you and all of that. So
yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for coming back on.
And that concludes today's episode. If you found value in this conversation or resonate with it in any way, I'd love for you to leave me a review on whatever platform you're listening in on and share about it on social media. Your support means the world. For more content like this, you can follow me at Corinne Adele on all platforms. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.